Thanks for welcoming me back. Let's begin in with a little bit of chant. Yai rai 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 rai, yai rai 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 rai, yai rai rai rai, yai rai 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 rai, yai rai rai rai. Yai rai 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 rai, yai rai rai rai, yai rai 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 rai. Rucha at Shekhinah, blessed are you who dwells within and between and around. We give great thanks and praise for our bodies and our breath, for all that has been woven in order for us to come to be here together in this way, in this time. I offer my respects to the indigenous people of this land that I inhabit, the Osage and Haudenosaunee people, honoring elders past, present, and emerging. I give thanks to my bright and benevolent ancestors ever at my back, to the more than human world and the elements who teach us so much just by being with them. So here we are in the day of Tiferet Shebeyesod. I was thinking yesterday that when we map the Sfirot onto our bodies, we find ourselves on this day, Tiferet, which lives in our heart space within Yesod, in the pelvic seat. And perhaps this is a reminder that our very aliveness, that which pulses and beats, comes from the seat of creation. Let's explore how this might be so. Maybe today is about the beauty that comes from bonding. Where do you feel bonded in your life? Can you call to mind a relationship whose bond brings great beauty? Or maybe today is about the compassion that we can emanate when we are most fully grounded. Can you remember a time in which you were able to dispense more compassion because you were fully inhabiting yourself? Or maybe today is a day when we can bring greater harmony through integrity. Feeling the harmony that comes from taking time for integration, for slowness, for stillness. I think about this each Friday night. It might appear that I'm doing this traditional movement of bringing the light, and maybe I'm doing that a little, but mostly I'm gathering myself back to myself, collecting all the frayed edges, the pieces of me which have gone astray in the busyness of the week, reclaiming all of the yeses that maybe should have been nos. Maybe you can relate to this feeling on a Friday night, preparing to light the candles as all of the frenzied energy comes back and allows for greater integration. Or maybe it has to do, this day of Tiferet Shebeyesod, with the way that balance, not only in our doing, but in our very being, is required for us to feel a strong foundation. Let's focus here for a minute. Tiferet lives in our heart center. It's the confluence of Chesed and Gevurah. Take a moment now, if you'd like, to feel into where are you on the spectrum? Which way do you lean? More Chesed or more Gevurah? Maybe you can feel it in your body. Do you reach out with the left hand of generosity, or perhaps pull back a little bit with the right hand of boundaries? What might need to be adjusted in order to fully inhabit Tiferet, finding the right balance between offering loving kindness and holding a boundary, so that even when we are inspired to give, we don't give ourselves away entirely. When we find ourselves in heart balance, we feel our wholeness. We can give from a place of that wholeness. Now let's move into the lower body, Yesod, rooted in our hips, connected to our legs. We have Netzach on the right, Hod on the left, and together, these come together in Yesod, foundation. Feel into that tension. Do you lead from a place of striving, of enduring? Or perhaps you found a slower pace that allows for greater surrender. Hopefully there is agility for both. Do you feel balanced? What might it take to be more deeply grounded in Yesod? So feel now into where is your Tiferet and where is your Yesod? And are they in alignment with one another? In a moment, we'll go into our time of meditation. And the invitation is to breathe into the various corners of your body. Feel into where there is a strong balance and where there is a call for realignment. You might even want to place your hands on your body and feel them as you breathe. I'll offer this image as we prepare to close our eyes. When Chesed and Gevurah are balanced in Tiferet, when Netzach and Hod are balanced in Yesod, Tiferet sits directly above Yesod and creates a clear pathway for the divine to flow through us. The beating of our hearts pulses through all that we create. The groundedness we feel allows us to experience beauty even more deeply. So we'll close our eyes now and see if breathing into these various parts of ourself might invite more ease and alignment. So we begin with a deep breath in and a full exhalation as we move into our time of silence. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May the balance of empty bring spaciousness and room to grow. Be balanced with the fullness, the wellness, the joy, the bursting energy. May chesed be balanced with gvura, for fullness of heart, tiferet, beauty, compassion, harmony. May it align perfectly with yesod, bondedness, grounding, foundation, integrity that comes from right balance between Netzach and Hod. May all that balances us, lift us up and ground us so that we experience the world and bring to the world greater wholeness and sacredness. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Kohenet Keshira, haLev, Fife, for this beautiful practice today. And we want to bring that quality of yesod, of foundation, thinking about this circle that we are part of right now, as a source of foundational support for those who are in mourning or are in a time of grief, or if it's a occasion of a yard site. And so we invite everyone to set the intention to be that support, to send love and support to those who are in mourning. And we invite those who are actively in mourning now, or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish, if you'd like to add the name or names of those you're thinking of, holding in your heart today, in the chat box, you're welcome to do so now or after Kaddish. And we invite you to rise in body or in spirit for Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Yirabah, Y'alma, Yivra, Yirute, V'yamlich Malchute, Chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayeh, D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalat, Zman Karib, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Borach, Lam Lamei Almayah, V'yishtalach Ha'ar V'yitramam V'yitaseh, V'yitadar V'yitaled V'yitamal Et Yishlam V'yirchu Ve'ela Mikol Pircha Asher V'nechamat Ha'amiram Ba'alma Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba V'chaim Aleinu V'Yam Yisrael V'imru Amen. Aseh Shalom B'Roma Aleinu V'Yal Yisrael V'Yal Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. As always, friends, thank you for being here, for your presence, which is such a huge part of this practice, just being present, showing up. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. Of course, thanks to our teacher today, Kohenet Keshira haLev Fife, who leads the Kesher Pittsburgh community. I'll put the information about that in the chat box in a moment, and also is the weaver of community for Kohenet, the Hebrew Priestess Institute. And looking forward to some conversation and an opportunity to put your questions about today's teaching and practice to Keshira in a few minutes for those who are able to stay on. We thank you, Candace Steingesser, for sponsoring this practice today in memory of your mom, Anne Rutenberg-Levitt, and Zichrono Livracha, may her memory be a blessing for you. We'll be back tomorrow with another session, this time led by El Shai at 12:30 Eastern, as always. And on Friday, we'll be led in practice by Aviva Chernick, joining us from Toronto. So we have just a fabulous array and lineup of teachers this week and going forward through the rest of the Omer and beyond. And thanks to Adi Stein, as ever, for holding our space with grace and skill. So for those who are leaving us now, we wish you a good, safe rest of the day. Lots of blessings to you. We hope to see you tomorrow or sometime soon. If you have a question for Keshira about the teaching or about any aspect of the practice, or just want to raise a question, please put it in the chat box. Preface it with the word question in caps if you can. And Keshira, I want to thank you. At some point before we end, I want to see if you would be willing to reprise that chant at the end, and maybe say if you maybe mention where that's from.
Yes.
I'm sure if the question is not already there in the chat box, which people are always eager to get the sources. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to look for questions, but let me start off with this. I think it's it's so easy for folks to get lost in their heads when we start talking about these sphirot and the like what's that and what part of the body, and it's a lot to hold, and we get drawn up into our heads to analyze it. So I don't want to overanalyze it, and I think it's been wonderful actually that you and so many teachers have grounded practice in the body and locating these kind of spheres and aspects of energy in our bodies. So today, of course, was focusing on the kind of the central pillar of this tree of life, right? Tiferet, which is as you said, the heart space, associated with balance, and Yesod, foundation, which is associated with the groin, the pelvic area, below the hips, right? And yesterday, when I led yesterday, was also talking about the association of Yesod with Tzedek, with justice and righteousness. And Joseph the Tzaddik, basically. So, and you were describing it today as bondedness, which I think is how it's usually, often described. So I was wondering, just to put that together, try to just make it, see if we can come up with a bumper sticker for this practice that people can take into the rest of the day. Just, something that makes it easily accessible. And so I'll tell you what I hear, and you tell me if it represents what you were conveying. That there's a connection between the balance that we can experience in our heart and our capacity to experience and to manifest, as you put it, bondedness, or connection. And that connection is in turn connected to what we understand as justice or righteousness. That is, that we're working backwards, that justice really is experiencing a sense of bondedness and profound connection, working to make that so. So I was just wondering, that's my little midrash on it. So I'm curious about, the justice piece for you. How does that come into play?
Sure. I think first, I love how you describe it. When I think about justice, I think about the balancing of the scales, and particularly understanding now that the balancing of the scales in today's world doesn't mean having the same amounts on both sides. In a society that requires greater equity, we need to really examine where is the balance. I've been thinking about that paradigm as it relates to the sphirot, that we might think that we need an equal amount of persistence with surrender. But in actual fact, we are socialized to be all netzach and not so much hod. I've been saying all week last week, give yourself an extra dash of hod and see if that feels more balanced than just doing a little bit of.
That's the acceptance. So that, just to put a point on that, that's the acceptance. Hod is the acceptance, the kind of letting go. Used a different word a moment ago, but I can't remember.
I think surrender, acceptance, receiving. What would it feel like if we leaned a little bit more toward hod? It might feel initially, relative to everyone around us, like we're out of balance. But in actual fact, it might bring greater collective balance were we to do that. The other thing I want to name as it relates to justice is that certainly we're seeing, and and for good reason, I should say, that there is a striving, there is a need for us to endure and to have the kind of courage and grit that will bring greater justice into the world. And we also need the Hod. It's not, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So
Right.
there is something about the balance.
There's actually a really good practical question that I think people often get confused about in terms of what's the right and the left, because when we look at the chart, these qualities look like they're on the left. So my understanding is that the visual of it, which presents Chesed and Netzach on the right side, on the now I'm getting no, I'm
The
getting
left.
confused. On,
Here's what I
Yeah,
could
they're all
say.
right. That's all right. It's as if we're facing in the same direction as that figure.
So I think the
Yes?
thing that's
Yes.
useful to remember is that it is a map of a tree of life. And
Right.
anyone who wants to tell me which side of the tree is the left side and the right side, I would
That's
love to
good.
learn,
That's
right?
good.
The tree
That's
of
really
life is
good.
a multi-dimensional, and it really depends on your perspective of
Mm-hmm.
where you are. So yes, you could Google it and find all different
Right.
configurations of which is left and right. What I would encourage is to feel it in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the chesed and where is the gvura?
Mm-hmm.
And if that sounds too esoteric, one way into it is to feel where is their tightness,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the tightness deriving from? Is it from giving out too much? Is it from holding back too much? And that might give you a clue about the rebalancing.
That's really great. I love that. That was fantastic about the tree, because then it really presents it, because the right and the left presents it in a dualistic way, right? So in a
Exactly.
binary way, it's it's either this or that. When you remember, oh, it's a tree. Does a tree really have a left or a right? It's circular. And so that's true with all aspects of it too, because you say, well, this is above that, and this is in the middle of that. And actually, the other part of the teaching is that each one is part of all the others. And so, yeah, you might try to break it down into sides or sequences, but actually, it's all swirling around inside us.
Yes. And ultimately, we, like the trees, are theotropic, right? We are growing toward divinity. And so there is this sense when I think of myself as a tree, it makes me stand up a little straighter. It makes me reach up with an openness. And there's something about that divine flow when we are aligned that it can come through and reach all the places, no matter which side they're on.
And now you're helping me build my vocabulary too. That's great. Theotropic. Say
It's a
what we
good
said.
one, isn't it? It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's an excellent one. Um, uh, let's see. Other questions?
There's a question. I received a question privately. Is it okay for me to address?
Sure, please.
Great. I
If that seems
received a
appropriate, sure.
I received a question privately from someone who's asking about the relationship between Yesod and the healing of reproductive issues, of fertility issues. And
Mm,
so I want to say just a word about this, referencing what we were just speaking about, which is to perhaps feel into where tension lies. If we consider that the pelvic region is at this intersection between the striving and the surrender, there can be when there is tension there, if you think about it manifesting in that space in between, it can sometimes lead to, we'll say, congestion, for lack of a better word. So breathing in and creating spaciousness, and also getting clear about, the where does the striving come from? If we're out of balance and it's causing misalignment or it's causing pain or challenge, sometimes, as Mark just said, all of the sfirot are connected to one another. There's a misalignment or a mismatch in how the messaging is happening. So this practice of kind of reviewing the sfirot, looking at the limbs, looking at the parts of the body, checking in with ourselves, where is there ease and where is there tension, and what might be, what wants to be released, what wants to be spoken, what might I need to do to bring greater balance and freedom. Now, of course, this is not a medical diagnosis or advice, but only to say that we know our own bodies. We can often feel intrinsically when there's something that's out of balance. And often the hardest part is not identifying what it is, it's making peace with or accepting what the messages are saying. So making time, doing exactly what we're doing today, coming to silence and checking in with ourselves, can make a space for healing.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I do want to ask you, I was, about what you said a little bit earlier about there is a sense, I think, at least I have a sense that, the goal is balance, right? It's like getting Netzach and Hod into an alignment, and like if we're going to a spiritual chiropractor, so that everything lines up, which sounds good, and that's but I thought I heard in what you were saying, and maybe I didn't hear that right, that maybe that's not really the way to think about it, that that moment to moment, like there's no right answer. So like the goal is perfect alignment, okay? But actually in any given moment, what that tree might look like is actually something different. Like in this moment, it might be all Netzach and no Hod, right? And like you could be like this, and that's okay, right? And that's quite interesting, And I was curious whether you were alluding to that there are times in our personal history or collective history which call for this, and there's been not so much this at this
Yes.
moment,
Yes.
and so I'll leave it there.
Yes.
What do you
I
think?
think, well, if we can get underneath a little bit about what are we doing here to begin with, right? Meditation may be a practice of calming and returning to ourselves. It's a tool of resilience, right? The ability to bounce back when something
Mm-hmm.
happens. So
Mm-hmm.
there are moments in life when we are all netzach, right? Or there may be moments in life when we're all chesed, and it's okay. We can hop on one foot, or we can lean really heavily in one direction, because when we have, whether you call it core strength or resilience or centeredness, if you know how to find your way back to center,
Mm-hmm.
you don't risk falling over when you do
Mm-hmm.
that. So we're for those of us who are steeped, I haven't been a student in a long time, but my being still functions on an academic calendar. So I'm feeling ragged. We're at the end of a school year. It's not my school year, but somebody somewhere is trying to finish their term papers. And so I'm in this mode always in May, which is full Netzach, cross the finish line. Let's lay all these projects to rest before we turn the season. Um, and I know how to rebalance with Hod. I know to leave myself some spaciousness after Shavuot so that I can receive revelation and bathe in it a little before
Mm-hmm.
jumping into the next thing. I think when we have a resilience practice and we have agility, then it's okay to be out of alignment because we know how to get back. The problem is when we get stuck out of alignment and we think that the new posture is the alignment. That
That's
happens to
great.
me when I work for
Just freeze.
hours.
Can we freeze frame that for a moment?
Sure.
Let's hold that thought, okay? Because I think that's really worth sitting with for a moment. What you just said, I think, has a lot of wisdom there.
Mm.
And there's for me at least, is a new thought about that being out of alignment in a given moment may be exactly where we need to be, and that the problem is if we either get stuck in it or we mistake it as, oh, now I've got it, right? That's it. But it's about the way you're describing the fluidity, the harmony. As you were talking, I had this image. I don't know if you ever seen Inside Out, the movie Inside Out. Pixar,
Oh,
must
yes,
see,
yes,
must
yes.
see.
It's been a
The
while, yes.
characters,
Yes.
joy, sadness, all the feelings. It would be great, and maybe we can do a remake with all this Furot and all the characters at the control board, trying to see, okay, what is this moment calling for? What is going on in there with you? What's happening with Netzach? And Hod is trying to be heard. But there's something about having those characters, and even if they're not dominant at the moment, they're still there. They're all still there, latent, waiting to be called upon or activated in some way. So thank you for, supporting the suppleness of that. And the tree of life, I think also, remembering, oh, it's a tree. It's not a picture. of a tree. It's an actual tree. It's living. It's dynamic. It's never static. That's really helpful.
It's us.
Okay, people, we're going to start crowdfunding this new Pixar movie.
This movie.
Yeah, I'll pitch it to anybody. Any connections with Pete Docter or any of those Pixar folks? You're in at the ground floor. All right. Let's see if there's any other questions.
I think it's worth mentioning to this last point that even though we're describing things and talking about balance, that it's not binary. None of the Sfirot are inherently good or bad. We need all of them in order to be whole. It's about attuning ourselves in any given moment and knowing which posture to be in.
I'm into that. I put into the chat box, I'm putting it again, the link to Keshira's website. You should know that Keshira leads a community in Pittsburgh called Keshira. I've never been able to do it yet, but I know I'm on the list, so I get notices about your Kabbalat Shabbat, and always have an intention to do it. And one day I will, but I just want to let people know about that and the wonderful work you're doing. And thank you so much, as always, for making time to lead us and teach us today. And thanks, Candace, for sponsoring this practice today, and Adi, and most of all to all of you for making this community so special and powerful. Thanks, Keshira. Oh, muted.
Thank you for having me. And I will say, someone just asked in the chat, Batya Levine, may I be empty?
Oh, yeah.
To receive. I should have had the link, but if you go onto SoundCloud and search for Batya Levine, you'll find a treasure trove of musical goodness.
We theoretically have 2 more minutes. Can we end with it? You're
Absolutely.
up for it?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So everyone get a bonus round here. Take your seat, and let's seal the practice with this.
Sure. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive.
Blessings, everyone. See you soon. Hope to see you tomorrow with Yael Shai, 12:30, or sometime soon. Thanks, Keshira. Be well.